Okay, here we go, part 2. Let's talk about the archive itself. The archive is the long-term storage location for studies that are no longer recent. Depending on the storage technology employed, the archive server may look like a larger version of the NAS. So as you can see, this looks a lot like the NAS. They're using blue lights instead of green lights, indicate that these drives are all good. Same things, instead of the drives being oriented horizontally or vertically, now they are horizontally. A whole bunch of drives in these racks. It's an archive. The archive is constantly growing as more studies are added to it on a regular basis. Consequently, it must be constantly monitored for performance issues and remaining storage space. The archive is usually partitioned into two parts so that each image file is replicated and stored in two places. If one side of the partition fails, the other still has all the data. The type of archive you have may be related to your PACS system vendor. In other words, if you have a GE PACS, you may have a GE archive appliance. On the other hand, you may choose to use a vendor-neutral archive, and there are pros and cons to both configurations. So basically, if you have a GE PACS, you have a GE archive, all of your images are stored in your GE archive. And if you want to get your images out of your GE archive, because you're not on a daily basis, the images will go in and go out on a daily basis, that's no problem. But if you want to take your images out and put them into a Fuji archive for your Fuji PACS system that you bought to replace your GE PACS system, GE is going to charge you a nickel a study or a dime a study, and that may add up, a dime a study times 5 million images is going to be a significant amount of money. Basically, your vendor owns that archive appliance. If you want to take all the images out and put them in some other device, they're going to charge you to do that. They basically own the door to your archive. So with the VNA, a vendor-neutral archive, it's an archive device that works with any PACS system. You can have GE PACS and a Accuo VNA, and if you switch to Fuji, you don't have to change the archive. You can get rid of your GE PACS and bring in your Fuji PACS and still keep your Accuo VNA. So think about this in terms of the real world. There is a hospital in Lancaster that recently went out of business. It used to be called Lancaster Regional. And over the 87 years that they existed, they had Philips PACS, Agfa PACS, and Siemens PACS. So they had on site 3 different archives. They maintained their old Siemens archive, and then they connected it so it would crosstalk with their Agfa PACS archive, and then they had a Philips archive. So they had 3 different brands of archives, all that they had to configure and get to work together. Right? Had they gone with a VNA, they would only have one archive, one place to have all their studies stored. So that's an example of VNA versus vendor archive appliance. The network switch. There's a lot of traffic moving between the NAS devices, the archive, and the secondary archive components. There's a lot of images that have to be pulled out of the archive and sent to PACS review stations. All of this data flow is managed by the network switch. Switches manage the flow of data across the network by transmitting a received message only to one or more devices for which the message was intended. Each network device connected to a switch can be identified using a network address, allowing the switch to regulate the flow of traffic. This maximizes the security and efficiency of the network. The database server. While the database server is not part of the archive, it performs a vital function that makes image retrieval from the archive possible. The database server keeps a record of where every study is stored. It knows which studies are on the NAS, which ones are in the archive. It determines the storage location for every study coming into PACS, and provides the location of every outgoing study to the IMS. The database server is the brains of the PACS system, and as such is backed up on a second server in a clustered configuration. If you were to lose both the database server and its backup, your PACS system would be totally down until you fixed it. So clustered, again, there's a cable that runs between them and runs the replication service. That's an example of a cluster. The IMS The image management service is responsible for coordinating the delivery of images to the PACS workstations. When a study is requested, it works with the database server to locate the study, then sends the requested study to the requesting workstation. And last but not least, everyone's favorite, the replication service. In addition to the replication done by the NAS, most modern PACS systems have a replication service running on either the database server or the archive server itself to make a complete system backup of the database at a certain interval. The replication service will also copy new studies on the archive to a storage device that's in a different physical location in the archive. If there were to be a catastrophic event such as a fire that destroyed the archive, the database and image files are safely stored at another location so you do not lose millions of images. So, database backups, very important. Something you'll need to check every day as a PACS admin. Typically, you'll run something called an incremental. So, on Monday, you'll run an incremental, and that backs up everything new in the archive from Sunday at midnight to Monday at midnight. So technically it runs first thing Tuesday morning, right? So every day of the week, you're going to run an incremental, which basically backs up the last 24 hours. Then, say on Sunday, you'll run a full, and that will back up everything that's in there. Right? And once a full backup is downloaded and it's safe, it will delete the old backup that happened a week before. So you'll have one day a week, you'll probably run a full backup, and every other day of the week, 6 days a week, you'll run an incremental. Just one possible way that a system might be backed up. It's not the standard way, it's not the way everybody does it, it's the way I would do it. Okay, thank you for watching.